The bell rang sharp and shrill, marking the end of 7th period at Redridge High. It was a Friday afternoon, and most students poured into the hallways with the kind of frantic energy only teenagers with freedom on the horizon could muster. But for Jaden and Malik Carter, the end of class meant something else entirely, walking through a minefield. Jaden, tall and lean with a quiet confidence in his stride, zipped up his navy blue duffel bag and glanced at his younger brother. Malik, shorter but broader, tugged on the sleeve of his hoodie to hide the black and gold martial arts patch sewn into the shoulder of his uniform. Jaden had told him not to bother. "They'll see it anyway," he had said. And he was right. "Yo, check this out," a voice barked out across the hallway, sharp as a slap. Jaden didn't have to look. He already knew who it was. Tyler Reynolds, star running back and self-declared king of Redridge High, was leaning against his locker, flanked by his usual crew, Logan, Ricky, and Brent, all wearing that same smug grin that made you want to punch and apologize at the same time. Tyler's laughter cut through the hallway noise like a blade. He pointed at Jaden's bag where a piece of the black GI peeked out from the unzipped seam. "You boys going to a costume party or something?" he sneered. "What's the theme, Power Rangers or Karate Kid?" Logan joined in, letting out a loud, exaggerated, "Hi-ya," before pretending to kick the air and almost hitting a freshman. The laughter was instant and infectious. It bounced off the lockers and snaked down the hallway like wildfire. Students turned to look, and phones came out. Malik stiffened beside Jaden. His fists clenched so tight the veins in his arms popped. "Don't," Jaden whispered. "Not here. Not like this." But Malik's jaw was already tight. His breath short. That same fire that ran through their father's blood was rising fast. "Hey, JJ," Tyler called mockingly, ignoring the warning in Jaden's eyes. "Didn't know they had black belt programs in make-believe." The crowd howled. Jaden stopped walking. There was a second of dead silence as he turned around slowly. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't scowling. He just stood still, eyes locked on Tyler. "What's the matter, you gonna kung fu me with your feelings?" Tyler grinned, clearly riding the high of the crowd's attention. Malik took a step forward, but Jaden threw his arm out, stopping him cold. Jaden's voice was calm, almost too calm. "You done?" The question wasn't loud. But it carried. Tyler blinked, then smirked. "Ah, did I hurt your feelings, Bruce Lee?" Jaden nodded once. "Cool." Then he turned around and walked away. Just like that. No words. No comeback. No fists. Just silence. And that silence was louder than anything else in the hallway. Some of the students exchanged glances. A few laughed nervously. Tyler looked confused for a moment, like he hadn't gotten the reaction he expected. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Outside, the autumn air was crisp. The brothers walked side by side toward the edge of the school parking lot where their mom would be picking them up. The sun was setting behind the trees, throwing long shadows across the pavement. Malik finally broke the silence. "You should have let me say something. Do something." Jaden kept walking. "And give them what they want." "Nah. I could have taken him," Malik muttered. "That punk wouldn't last 10 seconds. "That's not the point," Jaden said, his voice steady. "You win a fight, and you lose the war. You embarrass him, and suddenly we're the violent ones." Malik kicked at a loose rock on the sidewalk, watching it skitter into the street. "So what, we just keep letting them laugh at us?" Jaden stopped and turned to him. "No. We make them regret underestimating us. But we do it our way." Malik looked up at him, still angry, but the fire was cooling. "Our way, huh?" Jaden cracked a slight smile. "Yeah. The Carter way." Their mom's car pulled up, a dusty black Honda with a cracked rearview mirror and more character than most people. Denise Carter leaned over from the driver's seat, her afro pulled into a tight puff, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Get in, boys. You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, always able to read their moods from a mile away. Malik climbed in, slamming the door harder than necessary. Jaden followed, quieter. "Same kids again?" she asked, checking the rearview. "Same ones," Jaden said. "They saw the GI." She sighed. "You wore the uniform to school again?" "We didn't have time to change," Malik defended. "Practice starts right after school." "Still," she said, her voice softening. "Some people only see what they want. And they don't see discipline. They don't see strength. They see something to mock. Until they don't." Jaden nodded slowly. He knew she understood. She had been through worse. His mother was once a state champion in her prime, before she gave up competition to raise them after their father died. "They don't get it, Ma," Malik said from the back seat. "They think we're a joke." "They think a lot of things," she replied. "Doesn't make them right." She glanced at Jaden. "And you kept your cool." He hesitated, then nodded. "Barely." "That's more than most can say," she said, pride in her tone. "You boys are warriors. But real warriors know when to fight. And when to walk away." Later that night, Jaden sat alone in his room. The dojo bag lay open on his bed. The black GI folded neatly, the gold dragon crest catching the dim light of the desk lamp. He picked up an old photo from his nightstand. It showed a much younger Jaden and Malik, both in oversized white belts, standing next to their father, strong, tall, and full of life. His hand rested proudly on Jaden's shoulder. Jaden traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. One day, his dad had told him, "This will make you unbreakable." But today, Jaden didn't feel unbreakable. He felt like glass, clear, fragile, and too easy to see through. Still, something deep inside him stirred. They didn't know yet. But soon, they would. Jaden had always been the quiet one. Even as a kid, he was the kind who listened more than he spoke. While other boys were out racing bikes or arguing over video game scores, Jaden could be found flipping through books on human anatomy, martial arts philosophy, or his father's old training manuals. Malik, on the other hand, was fire where Jaden was calm. Loud. Proud. Quick to laugh and even quicker to defend his brother. Where Jaden measured twice and moved once, Malik rushed in head first, fists ready, heart even more so. And yet, despite their differences, there was something unbreakable between them. Not just blood. Something forged, through pain, love, and discipline. Something earned on the mat, through sweat, bruises, and breathless nights at the dojo. They were, in every sense of the phrase, brothers in arms. The small apartment they shared with their mother was tucked behind an aging laundromat on the east side of town. Rent was cheap, and the walls were thin, but it was theirs. Their bedroom had been split down the middle since they were kids, not by a wall, but by an invisible line of habits and personality. Jaden sighed, books, notes, and neatly folded uniforms. Malik sighed, workout posters, a cracked Xbox, and socks that could walk away on their own. But above both beds, nailed to the center beam, was the same framed photo, their father in his full GI, flanked by the two boys, still in elementary school, their belts barely tied correctly. Jaden sat on his bed Saturday morning, lacing up his sparring shoes. Malik was on the floor doing push-ups, counting under his breath. 74, 75, come on, man, don't just sit there like Sensei Buddha. Warm up. Jaden smirked. Buddha would have made you hold horse stance for 10 minutes straight. Malik grinned through his final push-up. Please. I could do that in my sleep. Jaden stood, walked over, and dropped into a perfect low horse stance, knees bent, thighs parallel to the ground, back straight, eyes forward. Malik blinked. "You serious?" Jaden nodded slowly, calm and focused. "Start counting." "Ah hell," Malik laughed. "Fine. But if you collapse, I'm putting it on TikTok." They both knew that wasn't going to happen. This was how they bonded, not over movies or music, but through challenges. Through sweat. Through the discipline passed down to them like sacred scripture from the man who used to lead their training in the dusty garage back in Atlanta. Their father, Marcus Carter, hadn't been famous. But in their neighborhood, he was respected. A third-degree black belt in Shotokan karate and former Golden Gloves boxer, he ran free self-defense classes for kids on weekends, teaching them that strength wasn't about violence, it was about control, about purpose. Then the accident happened. Jaden was 11. Malik was 9. A drunk driver, a late-night grocery run, and a phone call that changed everything. The dojo closed. The garage gathered dust. And for a time, the silence in their home was louder than grief itself. Their mother, Denise, took over where he left off. She'd once been a fighter too, not in the ring, but in life. A nurse by day, a mother by night, and now, a mentor in between. It was she who first brought them back to the mat. Jaden remembered that day vividly. Rain tapping the windows. The garage cold and damp. And her voice, firm but gentle. "We train because life won't always fight fair. But you can still fight right." He didn't understand it then. He did now. At noon, the boys headed to the dojo, a modest building on the edge of town tucked between a barber shop and a bakery. The sign above the door read, "Kenji Martial Arts," the red letters faded by time and sun. Inside, the scent of pine floors, sweat, and old tradition filled the air. Mirrors lined the wall. Heavy bags hung from chains. And in the corner stood a quiet man with silver hair pulled into a low bun, dressed in a simple white gi. Sensei Kenji. He had been teaching for over 30 years. Formerly from Los Angeles, he moved to Kentucky to slow down, but anyone who had trained under him knew that slow was the last word to describe his classes. "Jaden." "Malik," he greeted, bowing deeply. "On time." "As always." Jaden bowed. "Good afternoon, Sensei." Malik offered a lazy salute. "Afternoon, old man." Kenji's eyes narrowed playfully. 10 push-ups for calling me old. 10 more for forgetting to bow." Malik groaned, already dropping to the floor. "Man, you just wake up looking for reasons, huh?" "You give them easily," Kenji said, smirking. Class was brutal. As always. Punches, kicks, forms. Over and over. Conditioning drills that made lungs burn and legs wobble. Then sparring, full contact. Jaden moved like water, precise, deliberate. Malik came in like fire, explosive, unpredictable. Both styles worked. Both were dangerous. By the time class ended, the other students collapsed onto the bench with their gear, drenched in sweat. Kenji motioned for the brothers to stay behind. He walked over, placed a hand on Jaden's shoulder, then Malik's. "You too, you carry something heavy," he said. "But I see strength. Not just here," he pointed to Jaden's chest, "but here." He tapped his head. Then his heart. "Don't let small minds define your path. Let your discipline speak for itself." Jaden looked up. "They laughed at us. At school." Kenji nodded. "Good. Let them laugh. Laughter is short. Respect lasts." That night, they trained again, just the two of them. In the back lot behind their building, under dim yellow streetlights, on cracked concrete. Jaden held pads. Malik struck. Again. And again. Each punch louder than the last. Harder. Jaden shouted. I'm not the one holding back. Malik shouted back, sweat streaming down his face. They were more than brothers. They were each other's motivation. Each other's legacy. Jaden dropped the pads and squared up. Then don't talk. Show me. Malik grinned. And they clashed. Fists. Feet. Movement like memory. Rhythm born from years of pain and healing. A dance not choreographed, but lived. By midnight, they sat on the cold concrete, backs against the wall, breathing heavy, hands scraped, knuckles bruised. Malik looked at his brother. You think they'll ever respect us? Jaden didn't answer right away. Then he smiled, eyes focused on the stars overhead. They won't have a choice. Moving day in Atlanta had been bittersweet. The neighborhood kids helped carry boxes. Old Mrs. Jenkins from down the hall made cornbread wrapped in foil. Even Mr. Lewis, the grumpy vet from upstairs, shook Jaden's hand like he was sending off a soldier. It wasn't just a goodbye, it was a ceremony. A send-off for the boys who had grown up on that block, earned their respect the hard way, and now were leaving it all behind. But Redridge, Kentucky? It felt like a different planet. The trees were taller, the sidewalks too clean, and the air smelled like someone vacuumed the sky. People smiled, but not in the way people in Atlanta smiled. There, a smile meant something. Here, it felt like a mask. Jaden noticed it the moment they pulled into the neighborhood. The glances. The way curtains twitched. A blonde woman jogging stopped mid-stride and stared like she was watching something unfamiliar walk into her world. And maybe they were. Black, poor, and martial artists. In this part of town, they were an anomaly wrapped in a stereotype. Redridge High was everything you'd expect from a suburban school trying too hard to look like a private academy. Brick walls, spotless hallways, banners with cheesy mottos like "Excellence is not an option, it's an expectation." Jaden read that sign every morning as they walked in. It felt like a threat. Malik had tried to fit in from day one. Loud jokes in the cafeteria, daps in the hallway, even a short-lived attempt to join the basketball team. Jaden watched from the sidelines. Not out of fear, just instinct. He could feel the difference here. Not just in skin color, but in rhythm. Language. Energy. They don't talk to us like we're students, Jaden once said. They talk like they're trying to figure out if we're safe. Malik had laughed it off. They're just lame. They'll come around. But 3 weeks in, the truth was obvious, they weren't coming around. Tyler and his crew had made sure of that. They ruled the hallways like frat bros in training. Entitled. Loud. Untouchable. Their dads were cops, lawyers, real estate agents, and football coaches. Their last names were on plaques in the trophy case. Jaden. His last name was in his brother's fists. It started small. A shoulder bump here. A joke there. But then came the whispers. The names. Bruce Leroy. Karate Clown. One day someone put a fortune cookie in Jaden's locker with a note that said, "Even dragons get cooked." Another time, Malik opened his locker to find his belt, his black belt, tied into a noose. They told the principal. He said he'd look into it. He never did. One Thursday, Malik came home fuming. Jaden was at the kitchen table, finishing homework while stirring mac and cheese from the stovetop. Malik dropped his bag with a thud. "They made a tick-tock," he said. Jaden looked up. "Tyler and them." "It's me. From gym class." They slowed it down and added kung fu sound effects. Like I'm in some stupid chopsaki movie. He shoved his phone across the table. Jaden watched. It was edited like a joke, every punch from Malik met with a fake, "hi-yah" sound. A laugh track played in the background. Comments were flooding in. Jackie Chan's discount cousin. When your dad teaches you moves from Netflix. Bet he yells at pigeons too. Jaden put the phone down. Don't let it get to you, he said softly. Too late, Malik snapped. I'm done taking this crap. Jaden stood. And do what? Hit Tyler. Get suspended. Prove them right. No, Malik said, his voice low and dangerous. Prove them wrong. That night, they sat with their mom on the couch. Denise listened quietly as Malik vented. She didn't interrupt. She didn't lecture. She just let him burn out. Then she stood, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a worn box. She placed it on the coffee table. Inside were old VHS tapes, wrapped belts, and a faded tournament medal with their father's name engraved on the back, Marcus, the Wall, Carter. Jaden reached in and pulled out a black and white photo. Their father, fists raised, eyes fierce. You know what he used to tell me? Denise said, sitting down again. People will see your color before they see your character. So make your character so loud, they can't ignore it. She looked at them both. You don't silence bullies with fists. You silence them with greatness. Jaden's eyes locked with Malik's. There was no need for words. The next morning, Jaden wore his GI pants under his jeans. Malik wore his belt as a headband. And they walked into Redridge High like warriors entering enemy territory. People stared. Whispered. One kid tried to snap a picture, but Jaden just stared him down until he dropped the phone. They didn't need to fight today. Today was about presence. About showing that they weren't hiding anymore. In English class, Mr. Banner asked the students to write about a personal challenge. Jaden raised his hand. I'd like to present mine, to the class. A few students snorted. But Mr. Banner, to his credit, nodded. You have the floor, Mr. Carter. Jaden walked to the front of the room, pulled a chair aside, and stood tall. When you move to a new place, people don't always see you for who you are, he began. They see what they want. Sometimes it's your clothes. Sometimes your skin. Sometimes, your uniform. He gestured to the edge of his GI, just visible under his hoodie. But none of that defines me. What does define me is what I've trained for. What I've bled for. And what I refuse to apologize for. He paused. My name is Jaden Carter. I'm a martial artist. I'm a son. A brother. And I'm not going anywhere. Silence. Then Mr. Banner clapped. A few students joined. Not many. But enough. Malik wasn't far behind. That day at lunch, when Tyler tried to trip him near the lunch table, Malik didn't react. He didn't look. Didn't flinch. He just whispered, one day. You'll wish you hadn't. Tyler froze. Just for a moment. And that moment was everything. It started with laughter. Not the kind that warms a room or eases tension. This was sharp. Pointed. The kind of laughter meant to shrink a person down to nothing. Jaden and Malik were sitting at their usual lunch table near the corner window of the cafeteria, the unofficial no-man's land of Redridge High. It was the spot where loners, misfits, and anyone deemed different silently congregated. A few art kids sat nearby, earbuds in. A shy sophomore scribbled anime in her sketchbook. Jaden liked the quiet. But quiet wasn't going to last. Hey, check it out, a voice called out across the room. The Power Rangers brought their lunch today. Tyler Reynolds again. Loud. Confident. Surrounded by a growing circle of kids who had nothing better to do than ride someone else's ego. Logan was recording. Brent tossed a fortune cookie onto their table. Ricky did a fake kung fu bow. Malik didn't move. He stared at his sandwich, lips pressed tight. Jaden calmly picked up the cookie, cracked it open, and read the fortune aloud. You will get your butt kicked by a jock in the near future. He placed the paper down and looked Tyler dead in the eyes. Try harder, Jaden said flatly. That one barely made me blink. Tyler's grin twitched. Not the reaction he wanted. And that only made him push further. He strutted toward their table, all swagger and arrogance, stopping right beside Malik. Tell me something, Malik, he said, voice low, so only the nearby tables could hear. You got all those fancy moves. Why don't you show them off? Or are you just playing dress up like your big bro? Malik stood slowly. He wasn't angry, not outwardly. But his shoulders were tight, and his jaw was stone. He looked at Jaden. Waiting for permission. Jaden gave the smallest shake of his head. Not here. Not yet. Malik sat back down. Silent. Tyler smirked. Didn't think so. And just like that, the laughter started again. It wasn't about the joke. It wasn't even about martial arts. It was about power. And Tyler had just announced to the whole cafeteria that he owned it. That night, Jaden couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts racing. Their training, their discipline, all of it felt useless in a world that rewarded noise over honor. He got up, walked into the living room, and flipped on the old TV. Static flickered, then settled on a local MMA replay from 3 months ago. He watched a fighter, smaller, leaner, take down a guy twice his size. Not with brute force. But with technique. With timing. With clarity. Malik wandered out moments later, barefoot, rubbing his eyes. You watching tape again? Jaden didn't look away. I'm thinking. Dangerous hobby, Malik yawned, flopping onto the couch. I'm done letting this happen, Jaden said. They mock us because they don't see us. They only see what they want, 2 kids with belts and brown skin. So let's give them something they can't ignore. Malik sat up, alert now. What are you thinking? Jaden smiled slightly. A demonstration. The next week, they asked Sensei Kenji for permission to host a student showcase. An open-floor demo, forms, board breaking, basic self-defense, at the school gym. A chance for people to see the art, not just the outfits. Kenji nodded after a long silence. This is not about pride, he warned. It is about education. If it becomes a performance, it becomes weakness. Jaden bowed. Yes, Sensei. Redridge High approved it. Barely. The principal agreed under the condition that it be part of the school's Cultural Awareness Week. A token slot, shoved between a flamenco dance and a recycled PowerPoint about world religions. But it was something. Jaden and Malik prepared for days. Sparring at night. Practicing board breaks in the alley behind the apartment. Jaden rewatched tapes. Malik ran laps. They even pulled in 2 other dojo students, Lean and Gabriel, both juniors who knew their forms well. Their mom helped sew new patches onto their uniforms. If they're gonna watch, give them a show they'll never forget, she said with a wink. Word spread quickly. Not because anyone was excited, but because Tyler made it a joke before it even happened. He printed flyers with photoshopped dragons, fake Kung Pao titles, and QR codes linking to the mock TikTok video. Live. This Wednesday, the poster read. Come see the Carter brothers air chop invisible ninjas. It was humiliating. But also, effective. By the time the day arrived, half the school planned to be there. Jaden stood in front of the gym mirror, adjusting his belt one last time. Malik cracked his knuckles beside him. You nervous? Jaden asked. Malik smirked. Nervous? Nah. I'm hungry. The gym lights dimmed. Students filed in, chatting, laughing, some filming. Tyler sat front row, arms crossed, waiting for something to mock. Principal Reeves stood up, cleared his throat, and announced, as part of our celebration of global cultures and traditions, please welcome students from Kenji Martial Arts. Muted applause. Jaden walked to the center of the floor. Alone. He bowed. And then he moved. Slow. Focused. Each motion deliberate. His kata was fluid, a silent dance of tradition and strength. Elbow strikes, palm blocks, knee sweeps. It was beautiful. Powerful. Then Malik joined. They transitioned into a two-man form, synchronized blocks and counters. Speed building. Breaths timed. Then, the climax. Malik broke a board mid-air with a flying side kick. Jaden followed with a spinning back kick that shattered 3 in a stack. The crowd went dead silent. Then, applause. Scattered at first. Then louder. Even some cheers. But not from Tyler. He sat frozen. Phone in hand. No smile. No laugh. Just silence. Backstage, Malik was glowing. Did you see Logan's face? Man looked like he saw Batman. Jaden wasn't smiling. Not yet. It's not over. You heard how quiet Tyler was. So. Jaden met his eyes. That means he's planning something. And he was right. Because that night, someone spray-painted the school gym wall. Ninja clowns go home. And a broken piece of Malik's demo board was left at their locker. With a note attached. Bet you won't look so tough outside the mat. It happened after gym. The smell of sweat still clung to Malik's shirt, and Jaden's muscles ached from the weight room. They were supposed to walk home together, same as always. But Malik had forgotten his phone in the locker room. I'll grab it and catch up, he said. Jaden nodded, pulling his hoodie tighter. Be quick. He headed out through the side entrance near the football field. It was late afternoon, the sun starting to drop behind the school building, stretching long shadows across the empty bleachers. The chill in the air wasn't just weather. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Jaden had learned to trust that feeling. Back inside, Malik grabbed his phone off the bench and turned to leave, only to find the locker room door slowly shutting behind him. He frowned. Yo. Silence. Then, a whisper. Ready for round 2, ninja boy. Malik spun, but it was too late. A blow landed hard in his ribs, knocking the wind out of him. Another grabbed him from behind, arms pinned. Logan. Brent. Ricky. And Tyler, stepping out of the shadows, a fist wrapped in athletic tape, smiling like this was just a game. Bet your kung fu can't help you now, Tyler said, stepping closer. Malik struggled, rage flaring, but his breath was short, his stance off. They'd timed this. Planned it. Cowards didn't attack in the open. Outside, Jaden's feet stopped cold when he heard the thud. Then a voice, faint, but distinct. Malik. Get off me. Jaden ran. Full sprint. Around the side of the building, across the practice field, straight into the back entrance of the gym. He didn't think. Didn't hesitate. He moved. Malik was on the ground when Jaden burst in. One hand still trying to shield his face as Brent raised a foot for another kick. Jaden launched. A flying knee caught Brent clean in the chest, sending him sprawling into a row of lockers. Logan shouted, charged, but Jaden pivoted, grabbed his wrist mid-swing and twisted, dropping him with a clean shoulder throw. Only Tyler remained now. Breathing heavy, hands up, face suddenly, less confident. Jaden stepped forward slowly. You wanna see what a real black belt does? Tyler swung. Big mistake. Jaden sidestepped, redirected his momentum, and in one clean, practiced motion, dropped him to the floor with a sweep so precise it looked rehearsed. But it wasn't. It was instinct. It was years of training. Control. Timing. Knowing exactly how much force to use, and how much to hold back. Tyler lay there, gasping. The others groaned, stunned, not just from pain, but disbelief. Jaden didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply stood over them, silent, breathing hard. Malik pulled himself up slowly, holding his side. "You okay?" Jaden asked. Malik nodded. "I've had worse." Then came the sound. Footsteps. The door opened. A teacher stood there, Coach Harmon, football coach, clipboard in hand. He froze, eyes sweeping over the scene. Tyler and crew on the ground. Jaden standing. Malik bruised. Locker room a mess. The silence stretched like an invisible wall. Tyler pointed, voice weak. "They jumped us." Harmon raised an eyebrow. "All of you got jumped by two kids half your size." Jaden didn't say anything. Didn't have to. The scene said it all. Later that evening, Principal Reeves called their mother. They sat in the front office, Malik with an ice pack, Jaden with folded arms. "You're telling me," Denise said, her voice calm but steel-edged, "that my sons were attacked, defended themselves, and now you're considering suspension?" Reeves cleared his throat. "There's a zero-tolerance policy on fighting." "And what's your tolerance on racism?" she snapped. "Because my sons have been harassed for weeks and y'all sat on your hands. My boy came home with a noose in his locker. Did you follow up on that?" The principal had no answer. That night at home, Malik winced as Jaden helped him tape his ribs. "This is gonna look amazing in our villain origin story documentary," Malik joked. Jaden smirked. "Yeah, except the villains are the ones crying on the floor." Malik leaned back against the couch, grimacing. "You think they'll try something again?" Jaden's eyes darkened. "Not the same way. They'll go sneakier," Malik said. "Meaner." Jaden nodded. "So we stay ready. But smart. Always." There was a pause. Then Malik looked up, eyes serious. "You saved me, man." Jaden shook his head. "You do the same." "I have," Malik grinned. "About 5 million times." Jaden laughed. "True." Across town, Tyler stared at his bruised reflection in the mirror. He held his jaw. His phone buzzed, group chat blowing up. People had filmed the fight. The real one. Comments were flooding in. "Bro got smoked. Jaden Carter's the real deal. Don't mess with the quiet ones." His grip tightened around the sink. This wasn't over. But he'd have to be smarter next time. More careful. More dangerous. Jaden didn't expect applause. He didn't expect forgiveness, or even understanding. After the fight in the locker room, he and Malik walked the halls of Redridge High like ghosts, neither hated nor celebrated. The administration had decided not to suspend them, but also not to acknowledge what had happened. That was Redridge, sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. But kids talk. And TikTok never forgets. By Monday morning, the clip had been shared over 60,000 times. A clean sweep. A perfect kata. Tyler falling like a sack of potatoes. Someone added dramatic kung fu movie music behind it. Someone else edited flames and lightning. Malik was going viral. And for the first time, some of the stares weren't judgmental. Some were curious. Even impressed. It started in third period. Jaden was halfway through a history quiz when a folded note landed on his desk. He didn't need to turn around, he already knew who it was from. Samantha Ruiz. Quiet. Bookish. Honor student. Sat behind him every day and had never once spoken more than a mumbled "here" during roll call. The note read. You guys were awesome. They deserved it. Jaden blinked. That was it. No name, no emoji. Just that. But it felt like a shift. Later that day, during lunch, Malik and Jaden sat in their usual spot near the window. Except this time, they weren't alone. Gabriel from their dojo pulled up a chair first. I told my cousin about you guys. He goes to Northfield. He said people are talking about Redridge like it's Cobra Kai now. Jaden chuckled. Let's hope they don't expect a flying crane kick. Then came Lean, arms full of Gatorade and protein bars. She dropped them on the table with a smirk. Warriors need fuel. Malik raised an eyebrow. Y'all recruiting for a dojo justice league or what? Maybe, Lean said. Or maybe we're tired of watching people get hurt while we do nothing. That afternoon, something even stranger happened. Coach Harmon, the same gruff football coach who barely spoke unless it involved drills or discipline, caught Jaden after school. Carter, he called out across the parking lot. Walk with me. Jaden froze. Then obeyed. They walked side by side, quietly. The fall leaves crunched beneath their shoes. Coach Harmon finally spoke without looking at him. You know, back when I played ball, we had a linebacker named Maurice. Fast. Strong. But quiet. Didn't take crap from nobody. White school. Black kid. Sound familiar? Jaden nodded slowly. One day, Maurice decked a guy who called him something he shouldn't be. Got benched. Coach said he broke the rules. I told Coach, maybe some rules need breaking. Jaden looked up. So why tell me this? Coach stopped walking. Because not every teacher here is blind. Some of us see you. Both of you. And I figured maybe you should know that. Then he handed Jaden something. A flyer. City Martial Arts Invitational, all styles welcome. Prize, $5,000. Jaden's eyes widened. We're eligible. Coach shrugged. Only rule is you show up. Maybe give Redridge something real to talk about. Back home, Malik was pacing the living room. I say we do it, he said, holding the flyer up. We enter. We win. We make sure the next time Tyler opens his mouth, all he tastes is humble pie. Jaden wasn't so sure. It's not about Tyler anymore, he said. It's about us. If we do this, it's gotta be for something bigger. Malik stopped. Like what? Jaden looked around, at the medals still in their father's old box, at the empty dojo bag in the corner, at their mom cooking dinner while humming a gospel tune under her breath. Like legacy. At school the next day, things got even weirder. Samantha Ruiz approached Malik between classes. Actually approached him, like, full-on walked up, made eye contact, and spoke. I'm in yearbook, she said. I want to do a spread on the tournament if you enter. Malik blinked. You're serious? She nodded. You two are the only reason I don't dread coming here lately. People are finally paying attention. Might as well tell the full story. Malik grinned. What, you want a cover photo of me doing a backflip? I was thinking more like you breaking a board with Tyler's name on it. They both laughed, a real one this time. Jaden watched from across the hallway, surprised. Then, pleased. But not everyone was laughing. Tyler hadn't been seen much since the fight. When he did show up, he was quieter. His bruises were fading, but his pride wasn't healing so fast. And he had a new group around him now, older kids, not even from Redridge. One drove a matte black Dodge Charger with tinted windows. Another had neck tattoos and a mouth full of gold. Jaden spotted them once, waiting at the edge of the school lot. Tyler walked up to them, shook hands. Jaden's stomach twisted. This isn't over, he muttered to himself. That night, he told Malik. Tyler's changing tactics, Jaden said. If he can't outfight us, he's gonna try to scare us. Malik shrugged. Let him. We've seen fear before. Jaden hesitated. This feels different. These guys he's bringing in. They're not school bullies. They're the kind that don't care about rules. Malik looked serious now. Then we hit the mats harder than ever. Jaden nodded. Tomorrow. 6 a.m. conditioning starts early. Malik groaned. You're evil. Jaden smiled. Dad would have said the same. The gym smelled of rubber mats and determination. Jaden and Malik stood side by side on the edge of the mat, their uniforms freshly washed and their minds locked in on the task ahead. The City Martial Arts Invitational was only a few weeks away, and Coach Harmon had taken it upon himself to run them through the paces, no exceptions, no shortcuts. If they wanted to win, they had to put in the work. All right, Carter brothers, Coach Harmon called, his voice booming over the quiet hum of the gym. Time to see what you've got. I don't care if you're champions already, every fight is a fresh fight. Let's get to work. Jaden wiped the sweat from his brow as the first set of drills began. It was a grueling routine, low kicks, high kicks, grapples, throws, and transitions. Each move had to be executed perfectly, each position had to flow seamlessly into the next. There was no room for error. Coach Harmon wasn't kind, but Jaden appreciated that. He pushed them harder than anyone else ever had. Malik, ever the fighter, loved this. He thrived on the challenge, the speed, the pain. But Jaden? He was different. He was methodical. Calculating. He could feel the rhythm of his movements, but there was always something in the back of his mind nagging at him. Something wasn't right. Tyler had to be up to something. That evening, as they cooled down, Lean and Gabriel joined them on the mats, stretching and chatting casually, as if nothing had happened. You're doing great, Lean said, her tone encouraging but serious. But I can see you're holding back, Jaden. You need to focus more on your power. Your precision is good, but you need to commit to your strikes. Jaden nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Yeah, I know. Just, feels like there's something I'm missing. He wiped the back of his neck, his gaze drifting out of the window, toward the parking lot. I think Tyler's planning something. Malik groaned. You're being paranoid. He's probably nursing his bruises and hiding out. Jaden's eyes narrowed. It's not about bruises anymore. It's about how he's been acting since the fight. He's pulling strings behind the scenes. I don't think he's gonna take this lying down. Lean raised an eyebrow. What do you mean, pulling strings? Jaden took a deep breath. I'm not sure yet, but I don't trust him. He's got new people around him now, and they're not just the typical bullies. I've seen that guy with the charger, and the one with the tattoos. They're bad news. Gabriel, who had been mostly silent until now, spoke up. Tyler's not stupid. If he's got the resources, he might be trying to find a way to mess with you guys during the tournament. It's not uncommon for things to get dirty. Jaden nodded. Exactly. And I'm not gonna let him get away with it. The next morning, Jaden woke up before dawn. The sky was still dark, the air crisp and cool. He pulled on his GI, grabbed a bottle of water, and headed to the gym for their morning conditioning. Malik had been grumbling all night about waking up early, but Jaden knew this was what they needed. If they were going to stand a chance, they needed to be faster, stronger, smarter. As Jaden ran the sprints on the track, his mind raced. He kept thinking about what Coach Harmon had said yesterday, every fight is a fresh fight. And yet, this one felt different. It wasn't just about the physical aspect. It was the mental game, too. Tyler was playing dirty. Jaden could sense it in the way he walked now, the smug look in his eyes when he passed Jaden in the hall. He wasn't just after revenge, he wanted to humiliate them. He wanted to break their confidence before the first punch was even thrown. And that made Jaden uneasy. The following week, they received a text. The invite for the City Martial Arts Invitational was official. But there was something else, too, a second message. Tyler. The message was simple, but loaded with implications. I hope you're ready. Not everyone plays fair in this tournament. I'm bringing my best, and I'll make sure you don't make it past the first round. It wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. Jaden showed Malik the message, his face hardening. I knew it, Jaden muttered. He's already trying to throw us off. Malik looked at his phone and shook his head. Let him try. We'll show him who he's messing with. Jaden stared at the phone for a moment longer, then locked it with a snap. No. This is bigger than us. If we don't take him out, he'll keep coming for us, and everyone else who's ever been a target. We need to expose him. The next few days at school felt like a ticking time bomb. Jaden could feel Tyler's eyes on him from across the hallway. He could see the subtle jabs, the whispered insults when they thought no one was listening. But there was one thing Jaden had learned from his years of training: when you're being watched, the best thing to do is stay calm. Don't let them know they've got to you. By the time the tournament rolled around, Jaden felt ready. But Tyler? He was a wild card. The day of the tournament, the air felt different. The excitement was thick, the gymnasium was packed with spectators, and the hum of conversation filled the space. But Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Malik gave him a quick nod before they stepped onto the mat for their first round. The opponents were solid, skilled, experienced, but they were no match for the Carter brothers. They made quick work of them, the fluidity of their techniques earning them nods of approval from the crowd. But it was the final match that made Jaden's stomach twist. Tyler. And his new friends. As they entered the ring for their first encounter, Jaden locked eyes with Tyler. He saw the smirk, the subtle gesture of his hand. Tyler wasn't playing by the rules, and Jaden was about to find out exactly what lengths he was willing to go to. The gym was electric. The crowd's energy buzzed through the air, their excitement palpable as the City Martial Arts Invitational moved into its final rounds. Jaden's heart raced, but he kept his breathing steady, his focus sharp. Across the mat, Tyler stood with his new crew, the tattooed guy with the neck chains, the guy in the leather jacket, and a few others who clearly didn't belong in a martial arts competition. Tyler's smirk was the same as always, but this time, there was something different about it. His eyes were colder. More calculating. Jaden didn't need to look at Malik to know that his brother felt the same sense of unease. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They were ready. But they weren't prepared for the shadow Tyler had brought with him. The match started with the usual routine, introductions, the bow to the audience, the nervous tension that always came before a fight. But Tyler wasn't focused on the fight, not at first. Jaden noticed how his eyes flicked toward his crew in the stands, a silent signal passing between them. Jaden's instincts flared. Something wasn't right. The first round went smoothly enough. Jaden and Malik moved with precision, their techniques sharp. But Tyler wasn't fighting with the same discipline. He was dirty. He was looking for ways to throw them off balance. Jaden blocked a low kick, but Tyler twisted his foot, making it feel like he was trying to sprain his ankle. Jaden gritted his teeth, barely keeping his balance, but he didn't lose his focus. Tyler didn't follow the rules, and it was obvious. He was willing to bend them, even break them. By the second round, the tricks were becoming more blatant. Tyler faked a high punch, but when Jaden dodged, Tyler's knee slammed into Jaden's side, a move that was clearly intentional. It sent a shock of pain through his ribs, and Jaden staggered, his vision blurring for a moment. Ref. Malik shouted from the sidelines. That's a foul. But the referee hesitated, giving Tyler a sly glance. It was clear that something wasn't right. The referees didn't seem eager to intervene. Jaden was winded, but he wasn't about to back down. He fought through the pain, his mind racing. He couldn't let Tyler's dirty tricks rattle him. He needed to stay focused. If he let Tyler mess with his head, he'd lose. Come on, Jaden. Lean shouted from the sidelines. Her voice broke through the noise, offering him a lifeline. You've got this. Don't let him mess with you. He could hear her, her voice like a spark in the darkness. He refocused, took a deep breath, and reset his stance. Tyler smirked, sensing Jaden's momentary weakness. He lunged again, but this time, Jaden was ready. The third round began, and Tyler came at him with everything he had. He launched a series of rapid punches, but they were wild, reckless, not the technique of a trained fighter. He was playing to the crowd, trying to show off, to push Jaden into a mistake. And for a moment, it almost worked. But then Jaden's instincts kicked in. He dodged one punch, then another, until Tyler overextended on a wild right hook. That was when Jaden saw his opening. He countered with a quick, fluid strike to Tyler's midsection, following it up with a precise elbow to the side of his head. Tyler stumbled, and for a split second, the crowd went silent. Tyler regained his balance, his smirk replaced with a scowl. But it wasn't over yet. As Tyler squared off with Jaden, Malik was facing off against one of Tyler's new cronies, the guy with the neck tattoos. It wasn't going well for Malik. The guy was bigger, and clearly had no interest in playing fair. Every time Malik tried to get an upper hand, the guy grabbed him in a clinch, throwing cheap shots to the ribs. It was obvious. The guy wasn't fighting by the rules either. And no one was stopping them. Jaden's mind raced. Tyler's crew was working with him behind the scenes, causing distractions, throwing punches when no one was looking. It was all part of the plan. They weren't just fighting in the tournament, they were trying to take them out completely. Malik! Jaden shouted across the mat. Watch out! Malik barely had time to react before the guy with the tattoos shoved him down onto the mat, his elbow coming dangerously close to Malik's neck. But just as quickly, the situation took an unexpected turn. The crowd gasped as a figure in a black hoodie charged onto the mat. It was Coach Harmon. Hey, he bellowed, stepping between Malik and the tattooed fighter. Back off. The tattooed guy sneered but didn't press further, clearly weighing the odds. Coach Harmon wasn't some small-time teacher. He was big, broad-shouldered, and had the kind of presence that commanded respect. I saw that, Coach said, his voice low and dangerous. You want to keep fighting, you do it by the rules. Otherwise, get off my mat. The tattooed guy muttered something under his breath but backed off. Jaden's heart rate slowed slightly as he saw Malik get back to his feet. With the referee distracted, Jaden knew this was his chance. He squared up with Tyler again, his eyes narrowing. It was time to end this. Tyler came at him again, throwing a flurry of punches. But Jaden wasn't intimidated anymore. He didn't care about Tyler's crew, his dirty tactics, or the drama they were trying to create. This was his fight now. Jaden blocked Tyler's jab and landed a powerful right hook straight to his jaw. Tyler stumbled back, his face contorting in pain. Jaden didn't hesitate. He followed up with a spinning back kick that sent Tyler crashing to the ground, unable to get back up. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the crowd erupted into applause. Jaden stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face, as the referee signaled the end of the fight. Tyler was out. Malik jogged over to him, breathless but smiling. That's how you do it. Jaden nodded, still catching his breath. But his victory felt hollow. Tyler wasn't done yet. This wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about something deeper. Something darker. The gym was alive with the sound of cheers, but Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had won his fight, yes, and Malik had triumphed as well, but Tyler's defeat seemed almost too easy. Jaden knew the game wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just getting started. Tyler was down, but not out. As the last fight concluded, the gym began to empty. The crowd dispersed, leaving behind an air of excitement and victory. But Jaden's victory felt bittersweet. He glanced over at Malik, who was high-fiving everyone on their team, his excitement obvious. "That was crazy," Malik said, still catching his breath. "We did it, Jay. We really did it." Jaden smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. "Yeah, but Tyler's not the type to just take a loss. He's gonna come back harder." Malik's face faltered, but he quickly nodded. "I know, man. But we've got this. He's not gonna get under our skin." Jaden hoped Malik was right, but something gnawed at him. The way Tyler had looked up at his crew after the match, the smug, defiant look, wasn't that of a man who had been beaten. It was the look of someone plotting something bigger. Something sinister. The next day at school, Jaden couldn't help but notice the odd tension in the hallways. The usual cliques had been replaced by whispers, furtive glances, and subtle movements. Even the air felt thick, as if everyone was waiting for something to happen. And sure enough, it did. It was lunchtime when the first sign of trouble appeared. Jaden and Malik were walking to their usual spot in the cafeteria, when they noticed a small group gathered near the doors. The familiar faces of Tyler's crew stood out, and they were looking directly at Jaden. Before Jaden could ask Malik what was going on, a message popped up on his phone. It was from an unknown number. "We'll see you after school. You won't know when, but you'll know why. Don't bring anyone else." Jaden's stomach dropped. Malik turned to him, reading his expression. "What's up, bro?" Jaden didn't answer at first. Instead, he locked his phone and put it away. His hand felt cold, the uncertainty of what was to come creeping up his spine. "Tyler," Jaden said quietly. "He's not done." Malik's expression hardened. "What's the plan?" Jaden swallowed hard. "I don't know. But I don't like this. We need to be ready. Something's coming." After school, Jaden and Malik stood by the main doors, scanning the area. The parking lot was full, but there was something off about it, no cars leaving, no kids hanging out. It felt almost empty. A sudden figure appeared from the shadows. It was one of Tyler's friends, the one with the leather jacket. He was standing across the parking lot, looking in their direction. Jaden's heart rate picked up. "What's going on?" Malik muttered, his fists clenching. Then, the sound of tires squealing cut through the silence. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, and Tyler stepped out of the driver's seat, flanked by his two biggest guys, the tattooed man and the one with the chains. "Looks like the party's just getting started," Malik said, his tone biting. Tyler didn't smile. He didn't even acknowledge them at first. Instead, he motioned for his crew to circle around them. It was clear this wasn't a fight, it was something else entirely. Jaden's eyes darted around. The parking lot was almost deserted now. Only a few stragglers were lingering by the gates, unaware of what was about to unfold. Tyler's crew had them boxed in. There was no easy way out. "Thought you were the big hero, huh?" Tyler's voice was mocking, almost taunting. He didn't seem angry anymore. He seemed calculated. "Well, congratulations, Carter. You won the fight. But you're not winning this." Tyler stepped forward, his expression cold. "You think you're some kind of righteous fighter? That you can just beat me and call it a day? Nah. It doesn't work that way." Jaden took a step forward, his fists tight by his sides. "What do you want, Tyler? You lost. We're done here. Tyler laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. Oh, you're wrong, Jaden. You see, losing is just part of the game. You've got your win, but I've got something else in mind. Something you won't expect. He signaled for his guys to step forward. The tension in the air became almost unbearable. But then, just as Tyler's crew moved in, there was a sudden screech of tires. A police car pulled into the parking lot, followed by another SUV. Coach Harmon was behind the wheel, and he wasn't alone. Gabriel and Lean were in the passenger seats, with their eyes scanning the crowd. What the hell is going on here? Coach Harmon's voice rang out, authoritative and firm. Tyler's crew paused. The arrival of the coach, and their friends, shifted the balance, if only slightly. Jaden stepped in front of his brother, shielding him from Tyler's gaze. This isn't a fight, Tyler. You're pushing this too far. Tyler's eyes flicked over to Coach Harmon, then back at Jaden. You think this changes anything? He laughed again, bitterly. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Just then, the police officer who had arrived with Coach Harmon stepped forward, his hand resting on the side of his holstered gun. All right, enough. We don't need any more trouble here. You're all causing a public disturbance. Everyone better clear out, or there'll be consequences. Tyler looked like he was about to argue, but one glance at the officer and Coach Harmon made him pause. For the first time, he seemed unsure. His smirk faltered. Fine, Tyler sneered, his eyes still locked on Jaden. But this isn't over. You'll regret crossing me. Without another word, Tyler and his crew retreated, getting back into their SUV. The tires screeched again as they sped off, leaving Jaden standing there, his heart pounding. Are you okay? Malik asked, his voice low. Jaden nodded, but his mind was racing. This isn't over. I know it. Lean stepped forward, her voice calm but serious. Tyler's more dangerous than you think. He's not going to give up just because you won this fight. Coach Harmon placed a hand on Jaden's shoulder. You did good today, kid. But you need to be careful. It's not just about winning anymore, it's about survival. As the crowd dispersed, Jaden realized that he wasn't just fighting for a trophy. He was fighting for something much bigger. The real battle was just beginning. Jaden couldn't sleep that night. The events after school replayed in his mind like a haunting loop. Tyler's words, the look in his eyes, the coldness in his voice. He wasn't just mad about losing, he was strategizing. And Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger than a high school fight was going on. The next day at school felt different. The air was thicker. The usual bustle of students moving between classes seemed quieter. Jaden could feel the tension in every hallway, every glance that passed between students. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Malik, too, seemed restless. The last few days had felt like a game of chess, with Tyler moving his pieces into place, each one more calculated than the last. As they sat in their first period class, Jaden's phone buzzed. He pulled it out discreetly and saw a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the old gym after school. You'll want to hear this. It was from Tyler. Jaden's chest tightened. He showed the message to Malik, who didn't even need to ask. He wants us to come, Malik said, his voice low but full of apprehension. What do you think it is? I don't know, Jaden muttered, his fingers tightening around the phone. But I think it's time we find out. After school, they headed to the old gym. It was a rundown building on the outskirts of town that no one really used anymore. The place had seen better days, and it always felt like a place where secrets were kept. When they arrived, the doors were open, creaking as they pushed them apart. The gym was empty, except for the shadows that stretched across the faded hardwood floor. It felt almost abandoned, like the remnants of a battle that had long been forgotten. But there was a different energy tonight. The air was still, heavy with anticipation. Tyler was standing in the center of the gym, flanked by two of his biggest guys. The same ones who had been with him during the parking lot confrontation. They all looked tense, but there was something else in Tyler's eyes now. There was a gleam, a sense of victory, as if he had already won. Well, Tyler's voice echoed in the empty gym, causing Jaden to bristle. You finally decided to show up. Good. I've been waiting for this. Jaden stood tall, his stance wide and firm. What do you want, Tyler? Tyler's grin was sickeningly smug. He stepped forward, his hands in his pockets. I want you to understand something, Jaden. I've been playing this game from the start. You were never really my competition. It's bigger than that. Malik took a step forward, his fists clenched. You're out of your mind, Tyler. What is this? Some kind of sick joke? Tyler's eyes narrowed. Not a joke, Malik. An opportunity. Jaden's confusion deepened. Opportunity? What are you talking about? Tyler let out a low chuckle, his eyes glinting with something dangerous. I'm talking about power. The kind that doesn't come from a fight on a mat. I'm talking about influence. About control. He paused, his grin widening. And you two are the key to all of it. Jaden exchanged a look with Malik. His mind raced as he tried to process Tyler's words. What are you saying? Jaden asked, his voice a little tighter now. Tyler's gaze hardened. I'm saying that I have something you need. Something that could take you further than your little martial arts tournament could ever get you. I've made the right connections, Jaden. I've got plans. Big plans. Suddenly, Jaden realized what Tyler was really saying. This wasn't about fighting anymore. It wasn't about winning a tournament or proving something on the mat. Tyler was involved in something far deeper, something that would change everything. Forget it, Tyler, Malik spat, stepping between them. We don't want your opportunity. We're fine where we are. Tyler's eyes flashed with anger, but his smirk didn't waver. You say that now, Malik. But I promise you, when the time comes, you'll be begging me for it. This isn't just about you two. It's about survival. It's about positioning yourself in a world that's going to swallow you whole if you don't play by its rules. For a moment, there was silence. The weight of Tyler's words settled over the room like a thick fog. Jaden could feel it creeping in, the possibility that maybe Tyler had a point. Maybe the world wasn't just about fighting skills and honor. Maybe there was something else. Something darker. Why should we trust you? Jaden finally asked, his voice steady, though his mind was spiraling. What makes you think we need your help? Tyler's grin grew even wider. You don't need it, not yet. But you will. It's only a matter of time. And when you do, I'll be here. Ready to show you how to play the game. A chill ran down Jaden's spine, but he didn't let it show. He couldn't. Not in front of Tyler. Not when everything he stood for was on the line. We'll never be like you, Tyler, Malik said, his voice cold and resolute. Tyler took a step back, his eyes glinting with a mixture of amusement and malice. I wouldn't be so sure of that. You'll see. The world works in mysterious ways. With that, Tyler turned, signaling for his crew to follow him. The door to the gym slammed shut behind them, leaving Jaden and Malik standing alone in the eerie silence of the empty room. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jaden felt the weight of Tyler's words lingering in the air. It was clear now. Tyler wasn't just an arrogant jerk. He wasn't just a bully. He was playing a different game, one that Jaden and Malik hadn't even begun to understand. And that scared him more than any fight ever could. I don't trust him, Malik said finally, breaking the silence. Jaden nodded. Neither do I. But whatever his plan is, we need to be ready. We can't let him pull us into whatever mess he's trying to create. They turned and walked toward the door, but Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer in control. Tyler's words echoed in his mind, and he realized that the fight they were facing wasn't just about strength or skill. It was about something deeper, something that could change their lives forever. As they walked out of the gym and into the growing darkness, Jaden's mind raced with possibilities. Tyler had made his move. Now, Jaden and Malik would have to decide how to play this game. Because the game had just changed, and they were in it whether they liked it or not. Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. He walked through the crowded hallways of school the next day, his head spinning with the weight of Tyler's words. The game that Tyler had referred to wasn't just a high school rivalry. It was something bigger, something that he and Malik weren't prepared for. The more Jaden thought about it, the more it gnawed at him. What did Tyler know that they didn't? During lunch, Jaden and Malik sat in their usual spot. The cafeteria was louder than usual, the buzz of chatter filling the air. But even as the noise swirled around them, there was an eerie silence between the two brothers. They hadn't spoken much since leaving the old gym last night, and neither of them knew exactly what to say. Malik took a bite of his sandwich and glanced at Jaden, his eyes filled with unease. "You think Tyler's really got something on us?" Jaden paused. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not good. He's been planning something. And he's not just talking about high school stuff. He's talking about power. Control. It's like he's been working towards something for a long time." Malik set down his sandwich. "You think it has to do with what he's doing outside of school?" "I mean, he's been hanging with some serious people." Jaden nodded. "I think so. He's not just the rich, spoiled kid from the fancy neighborhood anymore. He's got connections. He knows people. People who can get him anything he wants." A shadow crossed Malik's face. "But what does he want with us?" Jaden shook his head. "I don't know. But it's more than just beating us in a fight. He wants us to be part of something. Something we don't understand yet." As if on cue, Jaden's phone buzzed. He picked it up, only to find a message from an unknown number. His heart skipped a beat as he unlocked the screen. "Meet me after school. You'll want to know everything. Don't ignore me." It was from Tyler. Malik's eyes narrowed. "You sure you want to meet him? After everything that's happened?" Jaden exhaled slowly, his hand gripping the phone tightly. "We have to. We need to figure out what this is really about. Otherwise, we're just playing blind." Malik didn't say anything for a moment. Finally, he stood up and shoved his hands in his pockets. "Well, if we're going, I'm going with you. I'm not letting you face him alone." Jaden nodded. "Let's go. But we have to be careful. I don't trust him." The day dragged on, but Jaden couldn't focus on anything. Every minute felt like an hour. All he could think about was what Tyler had promised: power, control, and an opportunity that could change everything. But at what cost? By the time school was over, Jaden and Malik found themselves standing outside the school gates, staring at the black SUV parked on the side of the street. Tyler was already there, leaning against the vehicle, looking like he owned the world. He raised his eyes as they approached. "Glad you could make it," Tyler said, his voice dripping with condescension. Jaden clenched his fists but didn't say anything. Malik stepped forward, his voice cold. "What is this? Another one of your games?" Tyler straightened, his expression serious for the first time. "This isn't a game. This is about the future. Your future." Jaden raised an eyebrow. "What future? What do you want from us?" Tyler pushed off from the car, walking toward them. "I want you to understand something. The world isn't fair. It doesn't work on merit or hard work. It works on who you know. Who controls the game. And right now, I'm giving you the chance to join the winning side." Malik crossed his arms. And what's the price for all this winning? Tyler's eyes flashed with a dangerous gleam. The price is your loyalty. You want to move up in the world, you have to play by the rules. My rules. Jaden felt a cold shiver run down his spine. And if we refuse? Tyler's smile returned, but it wasn't friendly. You don't want to find out. For a moment, there was silence. Jaden could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. Everything that had happened so far felt like a series of escalating moves, each one building towards something much bigger. Something he didn't fully understand. But Tyler was right about one thing, this wasn't just about a school fight anymore. This was about power. And no matter how much Jaden wanted to turn away, he knew he couldn't ignore it forever. Finally, Jaden spoke, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. What do you want us to do? Tyler's grin widened. There's a group, a network of people who know how to get what they want. They control things. Real things. Money. Influence. Opportunities you wouldn't even dream of. I can introduce you to them. But you'll have to prove yourself first. Malik's face darkened. Prove ourselves. By doing what? Tyler leaned in, lowering his voice. By showing you're willing to take risks. By doing whatever it takes. You think your martial arts will protect you from the real world? It won't. But I can show you how to protect yourselves in a world that doesn't care about the rules. Jaden felt his stomach twist. He didn't want to admit it, but a part of him was intrigued. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. The opportunity was real, but so was the price. Tyler stepped back, eyeing them both. Think about it. I'm offering you a chance. A real chance. Don't waste it. With that, Tyler turned and got into his SUV, his crew following him without a word. As the car pulled away, Jaden and Malik stood in the street, the reality of what had just happened settling over them. Malik broke the silence first. What do we do now? Jaden exhaled slowly, his mind spinning with thoughts. I don't know. But whatever we decide, we have to be careful. Tyler isn't just offering us power. He's offering us a life we might not be able to walk away from. Once you enter that world, there's no going back. Malik nodded slowly. Yeah. But what's the alternative? We stay on the sidelines and let him run the show. I don't know, Jay. This feels bigger than us. Jaden didn't respond right away. His thoughts were conflicted. Tyler's world was dark, manipulative, and dangerous. But it was also powerful. And power had a way of making people forget what they were willing to sacrifice. As they turned to leave, Jaden knew one thing for certain, whatever path they chose, it wouldn't be easy. The price of power was steep, and they were about to find out just how high it would go. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The week after their encounter with Tyler felt like walking through fog. Every step Jaden took seemed heavier than the last, and every conversation with Malik was filled with unspoken questions. There was an undeniable pull towards Tyler's world, but there was also something darker about it, something that made Jaden uneasy, no matter how much he tried to ignore it. The afternoon after school, the two brothers sat together in their bedroom, the window open, letting in the cool breeze. They hadn't spoken much in the last few days, but the silence between them felt different now. It wasn't just the weight of Tyler's offer hanging over them. It was the uncertainty of what the future held, and whether or not they were ready to accept the path Tyler had suggested. Jaden leaned back in his chair, running his hand through his hair. I can't stop thinking about it, Malik. I don't know what's worse, the idea of getting involved in Tyler's world, or the thought of just sitting back and doing nothing. But doing nothing feels like letting him win. Malik sat on his bed, his eyes focused on the floor. I get it. I do. But I'm not so sure that we should just dive into something like that without thinking it through. Tyler, he's not offering us a chance. He's offering us a leash. Jaden's fists clenched. That's the thing. He's not forcing us. But if we don't do something, we're left out of it. And what happens if we're left out? He controls everything. Everything that matters. Malik shook his head. And that's the part that scares me. You don't know what it's like to be in that world, Jay. People get used. People get hurt. The people Tyler works with, they don't care about loyalty. They care about power. Jaden leaned forward, his eyes intense. I know that. But what choice do we have? If we don't play by his rules, we'll just be another nobody. But if we do, maybe we'll have a shot at changing everything. I can't sit here and pretend I don't want to at least try. Malik stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the quiet street. I don't know, man. It doesn't feel right. It feels like we're walking into a trap, and I can't just ignore that. Maybe there's a way we can take him down instead of playing into his hands. Jaden's voice softened. I don't think it's that simple. Tyler's been planning this for a long time. He knows how to play the game. And as much as I hate to admit it, maybe we need him to survive in this world. Just then, Jaden's phone buzzed again. It was another message from Tyler, and this time, it wasn't vague or cryptic. It was direct, almost urgent. The offer still stands. You've got until tomorrow to decide. If you want in, you need to show up. I'll be waiting. Jaden stared at the screen, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He showed the message to Malik, and both of them stood there in silence, the reality of what was coming settling in. Malik exhaled slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Do we do this? Do we go and see what he wants from us? Jaden didn't answer right away. He felt the pull, the temptation to take the risk, to step into a world that promised power, control, and influence. But at what cost? Could they really trust Tyler? Or were they just setting themselves up to be pawns in a game they didn't understand? That evening, they made their way to the same old gym where Tyler had first made his offer. The place was as empty and eerie as it had been the night before, but this time, the tension in the air was even more palpable. The door creaked open as they stepped inside, and they were immediately met with the cold silence of the empty space. Tyler was there, waiting for them, his eyes sharp and calculating. You showed up, Tyler said, his tone almost approving. Good choice. Jaden's heart raced, but he didn't show it. What do you want from us, Tyler? What's the catch? Tyler raised an eyebrow, his smile small but cold. No catch. Just the opportunity to be part of something bigger than yourselves. You want power. You want to matter. Then you have to play the game. And I'm offering you the first step. Malik looked at Jaden, his eyes dark with doubt, but Jaden nodded slightly. They had to at least hear him out. They had to know what they were getting into. Tyler walked toward them slowly, as if savoring the moment. I've got a meeting lined up with some people. People who can take your lives to the next level. But first, you need to prove that you're willing to do whatever it takes. The world doesn't care about weakness. It doesn't care about honor or fairness. It cares about results. The room seemed to close in around them as Tyler's words hung in the air. Jaden's mind raced, but he couldn't let the fear show. He had to decide. They had to decide. You want us to prove ourselves. But how? Jaden asked, his voice steady despite the rising uncertainty in his chest. Tyler smiled, a sharp, knowing smile. I've got a little task for you. A way to show me that you're serious about this. You don't need to worry about the details yet. Just trust me. If you do this, you'll have access to everything. Money. Power. Influence. All of it will be yours. Malik stepped forward, his voice harsh. What's the task, Tyler? What are you asking us to do? Tyler didn't respond immediately. Instead, he motioned for the two of them to follow him toward the back of the gym, where a dark, nondescript van was parked. The doors slid open, revealing a stack of boxes and a stack of cash on the floor. Take these, Tyler said, his tone colder than before. Deliver them to a specific address. No questions asked. Once you do that, you'll prove your worth. Jaden's heart sank as the reality of the situation hit him. This wasn't just a test of strength or skill. This was something else entirely. He exchanged a glance with Malik, who looked equally uneasy. We don't have to do this, Malik said quietly, his voice shaking with frustration. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is the path to darkness. Jaden's eyes hardened as he turned back to Tyler. We'll do it. But if anything goes wrong, this deal is off. Tyler's smile returned, colder than ever. Trust me. Nothing will go wrong. As they left the gym with the van in tow, Jaden's mind raced. He knew they had just stepped onto a path they couldn't easily turn back from. The power Tyler was offering was undeniable, but it came at a cost. And as they drove through the quiet streets, Jaden realized that no matter how much they wanted to change their fate, the price of power was always high, and sometimes, it demanded a sacrifice. The drive to the address felt like an eternity. The streets outside were empty, the city bathed in the cold glow of streetlights, but inside the van, the tension was suffocating. Jaden kept his eyes on the road, his hands gripping the wheel tightly, while Malik sat next to him, staring out the window in silence. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. They had agreed to Tyler's terms. They had accepted the task, even though it felt like they were stepping into the unknown. They didn't know who they were delivering the boxes to, or what was inside them. All they knew was that this was their chance to prove themselves, to show Tyler that they were worthy of what he was offering. Jaden glanced over at Malik, who had his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His face was pale, his lips pressed together in a thin line. He could tell Malik was struggling with the decision. The weight of what they were doing hung heavy in the air. Malik, Jaden said, his voice quiet but firm. We can still turn back, you know. If you're not sure about this, we can walk away. Malik turned to face him, his expression conflicted. I don't know, man. Something feels off about this whole thing. It's too easy, too smooth. And you saw how Tyler looked when he gave us the task, like he knew we wouldn't have a choice. Jaden didn't respond. He couldn't. The truth was, he was scared too. Scared of what might happen if they refused. Scared of what would happen if they went through with it. But the possibility of power, the chance to make something of themselves, he couldn't ignore that. He wasn't sure where it would lead, but he felt like he had no choice but to follow it. They finally pulled up to a small, run-down warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place looked abandoned, its windows boarded up, the only sign of life being the flickering light above the door. Jaden parked the van in front of the building, the engine humming softly as they sat there, staring at the dark, imposing structure. Here we are, Jaden said, his voice low. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. Malik exhaled, his eyes narrowed. This doesn't feel right, Jay. We don't even know what's inside those boxes. Jaden didn't answer. He just grabbed the keys and stepped out of the van, walking toward the back of the building. Malik followed him, his footsteps hesitant but steady. The closer they got to the door, the more the air seemed to thicken, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The door creaked open when Jaden pushed it, revealing a dimly lit interior. The smell of dust and rust filled the air, and in the distance, they could hear muffled voices. The sound of the warehouse came alive around them as they moved further inside, their footsteps echoing off the concrete floor. A man emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, with a scar running down the left side of his face. His eyes were cold, calculating. He didn't say a word as he gestured for them to follow him. Jaden and Malik exchanged a glance before following the man through the dark maze of the warehouse. They passed rows of metal shelving, some stacked with boxes, others with crates marked with illegible symbols. It was clear this wasn't just a place for storage. It was something else, something far darker. The man led them to a small office in the back, where another figure was waiting. This person, unlike the man who had led them here, wore a suit, a stark contrast to the grim surroundings. He looked up as they entered, a slight smile on his face. "Tyler sent you?" the man asked, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "Good. You're right on time." Jaden placed the boxes on the table in front of him, his heart pounding in his chest. Malik stayed silent, his eyes darting around the room, taking in the menacing atmosphere. "Well," the man said, as he opened the top box, "let's see what we're working with." He reached inside and pulled out a stack of cash, counting it quickly before placing it back in the box. He then picked up a second box and repeated the process, this time pulling out what appeared to be a set of encrypted hard drives. Jaden felt his stomach twist. This was bigger than anything he had expected. "What are you going to do with these?" he asked, his voice more strained than he intended. The man looked up at him, his expression unreadable. "None of your concern. Your job was simple, deliver the packages. And you did. That's all that matters." Jaden felt a chill run down his spine. Something wasn't right here. The man's casual tone, the way he dismissed them, it all felt off. They had no idea what they were actually delivering, or who these people were. But now, it felt like they were already too deep to back out. Just as Jaden opened his mouth to say something, the door behind them slammed shut with a loud bang. Two more figures appeared from the shadows, their faces obscured by masks. Without saying a word, they advanced toward Jaden and Malik, their movements swift and calculated. Malik's heart raced. "What's going on?" he demanded, his voice rising in panic. The man in the suit didn't flinch. "Tyler didn't tell you everything, did he?" he said, his voice now laced with an edge of malice. "You thought this was just about power, didn't you? You think you're going to walk away from this unscathed?" Before Jaden could react, one of the masked figures grabbed him by the arm, pulling him back toward the door. Malik tried to break free, but another figure held him in place. "What the hell is this?" Jaden demanded, struggling against the grip. "We did what you asked. What's going on?" The man in the suit stepped closer, his smile never faltering. "You're in this now. There's no turning back. The game has begun, and you're already players. This is just a test. A small one. If you want to make it out, you'll have to prove you can handle more than just deliveries." Malik's eyes widened in realization. "This isn't what we thought it was, Jay. We've been set up." Jaden's mind raced as the situation spun out of control. He had been so focused on proving himself to Tyler, so intent on stepping into this world, that he had failed to see the bigger picture. Tyler had used them, played them like pawns in a game they didn't understand. But now, there was no going back. They were in too deep. "Do you still want to play?" the man in the suit asked, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Jaden didn't have an answer. All he knew was that they had crossed a line, and whatever came next, they had no choice but to face it. The price of power was steep. And they were about to learn just how steep it could be. The sound of the door slamming shut behind them echoed in Jaden's ears, and for a moment, he stood frozen in place. The masked figures held them tight, their grips unyielding, as the man in the suit took a step forward. His gaze was cold, piercing, and it felt like everything they thought they knew about this world was crashing down around them. Jaden struggled to keep his composure, but his mind was racing. They had been set up, there was no doubt about it now. The packages, the task, they were just a test, and they had failed it without even knowing what they were getting into. Tyler had known all along. This wasn't about proving themselves. This was about control, and they were just pawns in a game far bigger than they had imagined. Malik's voice broke through the tension, his words tight with panic. "What do you want from us? We did what you asked. Let us go." The man in the suit raised an eyebrow, a small, amused smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "You really think you can just walk away from this, don't you? Tyler may have sent you here, but you're dealing with us now. You're deeper in this than you realize." Jaden swallowed hard. His pulse was pounding in his ears, but he refused to show any fear. He couldn't afford to. Malik needed him. They needed each other. "Tell us what we need to do," Jaden said, his voice steady, though every fiber of his being screamed to run. The man's eyes gleamed with something darker, something dangerous. "Now that's more like it. You want to survive this? Then you need to start thinking like us." Without another word, he turned and motioned for them to follow. The masked figures released their grip just enough for Jaden and Malik to walk, though they didn't allow them to get too far ahead. They moved through the dimly lit warehouse, the air growing heavier with each step, until they reached a small, dimly lit office tucked in the far corner. Inside, another figure was sitting at a desk, papers scattered in front of him. He looked up as they entered, his gaze sharp and calculating. This man was older than the others, his face weathered by years of experience. He wore a suit that looked too tight for his broad shoulders, his hands steady as he flipped through the documents in front of him. "These are the boys, then?" the man asked, his voice low and gravelly. The man in the suit nodded. "Jaden and Malik. They delivered the packages, but we need to see if they're ready for the next step." Jaden's throat tightened, but he forced himself to speak. "What's the next step?" The older man leaned back in his chair, folding his hands in front of him. "You're in deep, now. There's no turning back. But if you're serious about surviving in this world, you need to prove you can handle the pressure." Malik's fists clenched. "We didn't sign up for this. We were just following orders." The man in the suit's smile widened. "And that's the problem. You think you're just following orders? There are no orders here. There's only survival." Jaden took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He had to think clearly. "What do we have to do?" The older man leaned forward, his eyes never leaving theirs. "You're going to make a choice. A real choice. You'll be given a task, and how you handle it will determine where you go from here. Fail, and you'll be out. Succeed, and you'll move up the ranks. Simple as that." Jaden exchanged a glance with Malik, who was visibly frustrated. "What's the catch?" Malik asked, his voice harsh. The man's eyes darkened, and his lips curled into a cold smile. "The catch? There's always a catch. You'll have to prove yourself by taking on something difficult. Something that will test everything you thought you knew about the world. And you'll have no choice but to succeed." Jaden felt a shiver run down his spine. This wasn't just a test of strength or skill. This was a test of their very morals. Whatever the task was, they were being asked to do something they might not be able to come back from. Without another word, the older man slid a file across the table toward them. Jaden opened it, his eyes scanning the contents. It was a list of names, addresses, and photos. The first name on the list made his heart stop. Tyler. Jaden's mind reeled. "You want us to go after him?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The older man chuckled darkly. "No. Not exactly. But you're going to send a message. Tyler thinks he's the one calling the shots, but he's about to learn that there's always someone above him." Malik's face twisted with disbelief. "You want us to go against Tyler? Are you insane?" The man in the suit stepped forward, his voice cold. "You've been given an opportunity. Don't waste it by questioning everything. Tyler has his own agenda. But in this world, it's not about loyalty. It's about power. And if you want to keep what you have, you need to act accordingly." Jaden's pulse quickened as the weight of the decision settled over him. They had been thrust into a world where alliances meant nothing, and betrayal was the price of survival. He had thought he could control this situation, but now he realized he was just a pawn on a much bigger chessboard. "You'll be contacted soon," the older man continued, with the details of the task. "In the meantime, think carefully about what you want. Once you take this step, there's no going back." The masked figures motioned for them to leave, and Jaden felt his legs turn to lead as he followed Malik out of the room. They had been given their task. But it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about navigating a world where morality was a luxury they couldn't afford, where their choices would have consequences they couldn't predict. As they walked through the dark warehouse toward the exit, Malik turned to Jaden. His face was a mask of frustration and confusion. "What the hell did we just get ourselves into?" Jaden didn't have an answer. The truth was, he wasn't sure anymore. But one thing was certain, they had crossed a line, and there was no turning back now. The night air outside felt cold and sharp, and as they walked to the van, the weight of the task ahead pressed heavily on their shoulders. Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to make a choice that would change everything. And no matter how much they wanted to control their fate, the truth was that they were already being shaped by the forces around them. As he started the engine and pulled away from the warehouse, Jaden glanced over at Malik. His brother's face was pale, his eyes distant. "I don't know if I can do this," Malik said quietly. Jaden didn't know how to answer. He didn't know if he could do it either. The days that followed felt like a blur to Jaden. Every minute stretched out, filled with the deafening silence of uncertainty. After leaving the warehouse, he and Malik had returned to their apartment, but neither of them could sleep. The weight of the task ahead hung over them like a dark cloud, and no matter how many times Jaden tried to tell himself they would be fine, the truth kept gnawing at him. Malik was quieter than usual, and Jaden noticed the shift in his brother's demeanor. The once bright and hopeful young man who believed in doing what was right had been replaced by someone who was more guarded, more cautious. Every time Jaden tried to talk to him, Malik brushed him off, retreating into his own thoughts. But Jaden knew that Malik wasn't the only one struggling. The choices they had been presented with were impossible. Go against Tyler, someone they had looked up to, or take part in a world where betrayal was the currency. The very idea of turning against Tyler felt like a knife to the gut, but the man in the suit had made it clear, there was no loyalty in this game. It was all about power, and power was something they had never truly understood before. The call came in the middle of the night. Jaden had just closed his eyes, the exhaustion weighing heavily on him, when the shrill sound of his phone jolted him awake. He sat up, his heart racing. He glanced over at Malik, who was still asleep, his face turned toward the wall. Jaden hesitated for a moment before picking up the phone. The voice on the other end was smooth, almost too calm. "Jaden. It's time." Jaden swallowed hard, his mouth dry. "What do you mean, it's time?" "You've been given a choice," the voice continued, "and now it's time to make it. You know what you need to do." Jaden's mind raced. "Tell me what you want me to do," he said, his voice tense. There was a pause, and then the voice spoke again, its tone sharper. "Tyler's operation is about to expand. We've got intel that he's planning a major deal, one that could shift the balance of power in this city. You need to act fast. The clock is ticking." Jaden's pulse quickened. "What do you want me to do with Tyler?" "Simple," the voice replied. "You're going to sabotage his operation. Make sure it falls apart. Tyler's time has come. He's too ambitious, and he's made too many enemies. You need to send him a message he'll never forget." Jaden's stomach churned. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about taking down the person who had given them their first real chance, the person they had trusted. "Do you understand the consequences of what you're asking me to do?" Jaden asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," the voice said, its tone cold. "You either do this, or you'll become a target. Do what's necessary, and you'll rise. Fail, and you'll be forgotten. The line went dead before Jaden could respond. He sat there for a moment, the weight of the call sinking in. He knew he had no choice but to act. But could he really do this to Tyler? Could he destroy the one person who had given him a chance at a new life? Jaden put the phone down slowly, his mind spinning. He glanced over at Malik, still lying motionless in bed. For a brief moment, he thought about waking him up, telling him everything. But he knew it wouldn't make a difference. Malik was already far too caught up in this world, in this dangerous game they had found themselves in. He stood up, walking to the window and staring out at the city below. The streetlights cast long shadows, and the night seemed to stretch on forever. The city had always felt like home to him, but now it felt like a trap. Everywhere he looked, there were signs of danger, signs of betrayal. And he wasn't sure if he could trust anyone anymore, not even himself. Jaden? Malik's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see his brother sitting up in bed, rubbing his eyes. Jaden forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, what's up? Malik didn't look convinced. I heard the phone. What's going on? Jaden hesitated, unsure of how to tell Malik the truth. How could he explain that the choice they had been given was not one they could walk away from? How could he tell Malik that they were being pushed into a situation where they had to choose between loyalty and survival? I don't know yet, Jaden said, his voice low. But we've got a decision to make. One that could change everything. Malik's brow furrowed. What decision? Jaden took a deep breath and walked over to the bed, sitting down beside Malik. Tyler's in trouble. We're being asked to take him down. To sabotage everything he's built. Malik's eyes widened. What? Why? Tyler's helped us. We can't just turn on him like that. I know, Jaden said, his voice heavy with guilt. But this is bigger than us, Malik. We're being forced to make a choice. If we don't do this, we'll be marked. We'll be out. And we'll be left with nothing. Malik shook his head, disbelief and anger flashing across his face. But Tyler, he's one of us. How could they expect us to do this? Jaden didn't have an answer. He could see the hurt in Malik's eyes, and it tore him apart. He didn't want to do this. He didn't want to hurt Tyler. But the stakes were too high. The consequences of failure were too great. We don't have a choice, Jaden said softly. We have to survive. And sometimes that means doing things we don't want to do. Malik sat in silence for a long time, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. Finally, he looked up at Jaden, his expression torn. What if there's another way? What if we don't have to hurt Tyler to make it out? Jaden wished he could believe that. But deep down, he knew that the world they had entered didn't leave room for second chances. This was the game. And the only way to win was to play by their rules. The next few days passed in a blur. Jaden and Malik tried to keep their heads low, pretending to go about their normal routines while they waited for further instructions. But the weight of the decision hung over them like a shadow, threatening to swallow them whole. Then, one night, the call came again. Get ready, the voice on the other end said. It's time. Jaden's heart sank. This was it. The moment of truth. He had no more time to think, no more time to hesitate. The task had been given. The consequences were clear. They were about to make their choice. And the choice would change everything. The air felt thicker now, heavier with every decision Jaden made. He could feel the weight pressing down on his chest, his breath growing shallow as he stared at the phone in his hand. It had been 2 days since the call, and every minute since then, his thoughts had swirled with doubt, regret, and fear. The time had come. He had made the decision. Now, he had to face the consequences. As the phone buzzed in his hand again, Jaden felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. He had to act. He looked over at Malik, who was still asleep on the couch. They hadn't spoken much since the last conversation. Malik had retreated further into himself, and Jaden knew that it wasn't just the task they were facing, it was everything they'd lost. Tyler had been their mentor, their guide. Turning on him felt like they were tearing apart the very fabric of their lives. The phone buzzed again, and this time, Jaden answered without hesitation. "Are you ready?" The voice on the other end was smooth, controlled, as always. Jaden swallowed hard. "What do I need to do?" "Meet us at the usual place," the voice said. "You'll have your orders. And remember, this is your one shot. Do this right, and you move up. Fail, and you'll be forgotten." Jaden's stomach churned. He could feel Malik stirring on the couch, and the last thing he wanted was for his brother to wake up and find him making these decisions. Jaden had kept him out of the loop, trying to shield him from the darker aspects of this life, but he knew the time had come for the truth to surface. Before he could say anything more, the call ended. The usual place. Jaden knew exactly where that meant, the same abandoned warehouse where they had first been introduced to the game. The place where their fates had been sealed. He grabbed his jacket and quietly left the apartment, trying not to disturb Malik. The night was cold, and the streetlights cast long shadows across the empty streets. His footsteps echoed in the silence, and with each step, he could feel the gravity of what was coming. His mind raced. What if they were wrong? What if there was another way? But deep down, Jaden knew. There was no turning back. He had already made his choice. As Jaden approached the warehouse, a sense of foreboding settled over him. The place looked deserted, its windows dark and uninviting, but he knew that inside, everything was happening as it always did. The game never stopped. He pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of dust and old machinery. A single light flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls. A figure appeared from the darkness, his silhouette outlined by the dim light. It was the man in the suit, the one who had been pulling the strings from the start. He walked toward Jaden, his expression unreadable. "Glad you made it," the man said, his voice cold, as always. "You're not as naive as I thought." Jaden didn't respond. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to do what he had to do. "You know what needs to be done, right?" the man continued. "Tyler is a liability now. He's been causing too many problems. He's a threat to the entire operation." Jaden clenched his jaw, his fists tightening at his sides. "What exactly do you want me to do?" "Simple," the man replied, his lips curling into a cold smile. "You're going to take him out. Make sure he doesn't make it out of tonight." Jaden's heart skipped a beat. The words hung in the air like a death sentence, but he knew better than to hesitate. This was the moment. The choice he had made had led him here, and there was no turning back. But as the man in the suit turned to walk away, something inside Jaden shifted. A flicker of doubt. Could he really go through with it? Could he take down the one person who had given him and Malik a chance at something better? He couldn't stop himself from asking. What happens to Malik? He's not part of this. The man stopped and turned back to face him, his eyes narrowing. Malik is your problem, not ours. If he gets in the way, he'll be dealt with too. Jaden's breath caught in his throat. The thought of hurting Malik, of turning on his brother, was the one thing he couldn't accept. He had to find a way out of this. "Where's Tyler?" Jaden asked, his voice barely a whisper. The man gestured toward a dark corner of the warehouse. "He's waiting for you." Jaden walked toward the shadows, his heart pounding. Every step felt like it took him deeper into the abyss. As he approached, he saw the familiar shape of Tyler, standing with his back turned, his hands in his pockets. He was waiting, completely unaware of what Jaden had been told to do. "Tyler," Jaden said, his voice rough. Tyler turned around, a smile on his face when he saw Jaden. "You made it," he said, his tone warm. "I was starting to think you might back out. You're not scared, are you?" Jaden forced a smile, though it felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. "I'm here. We have a lot to talk about." Tyler raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension in Jaden's voice. "What's going on? You don't look so good." Jaden looked at his mentor, his friend, the man who had given him the chance to prove himself, and felt a pang of guilt. How could he betray him? How could he do what the man in the suit had ordered? "I don't want to do this, Tyler," Jaden said quietly, his voice faltering. "I don't want to hurt you." Tyler's expression softened, but there was a glint of suspicion in his eyes. "What are you talking about, Jaden? What's going on?" Before Jaden could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse. The man in the suit appeared, flanked by his masked associates. "This is it, Jaden. Make your choice." Jaden's heart raced as he stood there, torn between his loyalty to Tyler and his desire to survive. Every instinct screamed at him to fight back, to protect Tyler, to walk away from this madness. But the man in the suit was right. If he didn't make this choice, if he didn't act, he and Malik would be the ones who paid the price. "Jaden," Tyler said, stepping forward. "Whatever's going on, whatever they're telling you, you don't have to do this. We can get out. We can leave all of this behind." But Jaden knew it was too late. He had already made his decision, and there was no escaping the consequences. Jaden reached into his pocket and pulled out the gun the man in the suit had given him. His hands shook, but he steadied his breath. He couldn't back out now. As Tyler's eyes widened in shock, Jaden took one final breath. This was it. The choice was made. And everything they had worked for, everything they had fought for, had led them here. The warehouse was silent, save for the sharp sound of Jaden's breath. He could feel the cold steel of the gun in his hands, its weight both familiar and foreign at the same time. The weapon was supposed to be his salvation, but instead, it felt like the harbinger of everything he was about to lose. The air between him and Tyler crackled with unspoken words, with unshared pain. Tyler stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock. He could hardly believe what he was seeing, what was happening to them. Tyler, the one who had taken them in, who had shown them the ropes, who had once been a mentor and a friend, was now standing face to face with betrayal. "Jaden, what are you doing?" Tyler's voice cracked. The warmth in his tone had vanished, replaced by a quiet desperation. "This isn't you. This isn't who you are." Jaden wanted to believe him. He wanted to put the gun down, to walk away from everything, the danger, the corruption, the lies. He wanted to hold on to the boy who had walked into Tyler's life with nothing but hope. But the reality was different now. They weren't just kids anymore. They were players in a game where loyalty was a currency they couldn't afford. "Tyler." Jaden's voice faltered. "I don't want to do this, but I don't have a choice." Tyler's eyes narrowed, a mixture of sadness and understanding flickering across his face. "You always have a choice, Jaden. Always. You don't have to let them control you. You don't have to listen to them." But Jaden could already hear the echo of the man in the suit's voice in his mind. "If you don't do this, you're as good as dead. We don't take failure lightly." He clenched the gun tighter. He had no choice. He had already sealed his fate the moment he agreed to enter this world. The silence between them stretched out for what felt like an eternity. Jaden could feel the tears pricking at the back of his eyes, the weight of the betrayal threatening to consume him. He wanted to break down, to tell Tyler everything, to beg for a way out. But there was no way out now. The man in the suit had made it clear. Malik's face flashed in his mind. He couldn't leave Malik to deal with the consequences alone. He had to survive. And that meant doing things he never thought he would. Tyler was still staring at him, as if trying to read Jaden's thoughts, trying to understand why things had changed so drastically. Jaden could see the hurt in his eyes, the deep disappointment. And it crushed him. "You don't have to do this, Jaden," Tyler repeated, his voice soft, almost pleading. "We can fix this. We can still get out of here. We can leave all of this behind." But Jaden shook his head. "We can't. Not anymore. I don't have a choice, Tyler. I just don't." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps interrupted the moment of stillness. The man in the suit, along with two of his masked associates, stepped forward from the shadows, their presence like a dark cloud hanging over the room. The leader's eyes locked onto Jaden's, and for the first time, Jaden saw something that wasn't just cold calculation. There was a flicker of something else there, something darker. "Enough of the dramatics," the man said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Time to make your choice, Jaden. Do it, or walk away and suffer the consequences." Jaden didn't look away from Tyler. He couldn't. The tears in his eyes were impossible to hide now, but he refused to let them fall. His hands were shaking, but he didn't lower the gun. Tyler took a step closer, his face set with determination. "I know you're not weak, Jaden," he said, his voice low but firm. "You're stronger than this. Don't let them break you. Don't let them turn you into something you're not." The words hit Jaden like a physical blow. They burned. Because deep down, he knew Tyler was right. But could he really change his fate now? Could he find a way to stand up to the people who had put him in this corner? The man in the suit was losing patience. "Last warning," he said, his voice a thin thread of menace. "This ends now." Jaden closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of the gun almost unbearable. His chest felt tight, and his throat burned. He wanted to drop the weapon, to turn around and walk away. He wanted to trust Tyler, to believe that there was still a way out. But when he opened his eyes, the reality of the situation came crashing back. Tyler was still standing there, waiting, hoping. But Jaden knew that hope was a luxury neither of them could afford. The decision was made in that moment. Jaden's finger tightened on the trigger. The gun fired. A loud crack echoed through the warehouse, and the world seemed to freeze. But instead of the sound of flesh meeting bullet, there was only silence. Jaden's heart stopped. Tyler hadn't moved. The bullet didn't find its mark. Jaden's hands dropped, the gun falling to the ground with a metallic clink. His body shook with shock, his mind racing. He hadn't meant to shoot, not really. The gun was just a symbol, a tool of power, a way to prove he could survive. But when it came down to it, Jaden couldn't pull the trigger. Tyler was alive. The man in the suit's expression twisted in fury. He stepped forward, but Tyler didn't flinch. "You don't get to choose this, Jaden," the man hissed, his voice seething with anger. "You do what we tell you, or you both die." Jaden took a shaky breath, his whole body trembling. He looked at Tyler, at the man who had once been his mentor, his friend, and he saw something in Tyler's eyes. There was no anger, no resentment. Just a quiet understanding. Tyler knew what Jaden had been forced to do. "You've made the right choice, Jaden," Tyler said softly, his voice steady despite the situation. "But you've still got time to fix this." The man in the suit stepped forward, his eyes cold. "Enough. This is your last chance." But before Jaden could react, Malik's voice rang out from the door. "Hey! What's going on in here?" Jaden turned just in time to see his younger brother walk into the room, his face confused but determined. Malik wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to be involved in this, not yet. But now he was, and everything was about to change. "Malik, no!" Jaden shouted, but it was too late. Malik had already seen enough. Malik's eyes shifted from Jaden to Tyler, then to the man in the suit and his associates. The realization hit him all at once, and his expression hardened. "What the hell is going on, Jaden? You're one of them now." You're working for him? Jaden didn't know how to answer. Everything felt like it was collapsing in on him, like the walls were closing in. He had no answer for Malik, no way to explain the mess he had gotten them into. The tension in the room was palpable. The man in the suit smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Well, well. It looks like the family is finally complete. Jaden looked at Malik, then back at Tyler, his heart breaking. It had all come to this: betrayal, deception, and the looming threat of destruction. The question now was, who would survive the fallout? Malik's eyes flickered between Jaden and the cold, calculating man in the suit. The confusion in his expression quickly morphed into something sharper, something closer to hurt. Jaden's heart sank as he watched his younger brother take a step back, his hand instinctively reaching for his phone, as if to call for help. The instinct to protect his family was something Jaden could never shake, but in this moment, he realized just how much danger Malik was in. There was no escaping this now, not for him, not for anyone. Malik, stop, Jaden said, his voice urgent but shaking. This isn't what you think. You don't. You're working for him now. Malik's voice cracked, his gaze fixing on the man in the suit, then back to Jaden. You're really doing this? All this time, I thought we were just trying to survive. No, I thought you were doing this for us. For me. Jaden's throat tightened, the weight of Malik's words hitting him harder than any punch he'd taken in the past. He had promised Malik they would get out of this, that they wouldn't let the system, the violence, or the lies control them. But now, Malik was staring at him as though he were a stranger. Malik, listen to me, Jaden said, his voice soft but desperate. I didn't want this. I didn't want to be a part of all this, but I had no choice. He looked at the man in the suit, his eyes narrowing in frustration, they pushed me into it. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Not Tyler, not you, not anyone. The man in the suit, who had remained silent up to this point, let out a dark chuckle. How noble, he sneered. The brotherly bond. But make no mistake, Jaden, loyalty only goes as far as your survival. And if you can't make the hard choices, you'll end up like Tyler. Or worse. Tyler, who had been watching the exchange quietly, spoke up then, his voice steady despite the tension. Jaden. Malik, listen to him, okay? I know this looks bad, but you can't let him control you. He's playing you. Jaden's eyes flickered to Tyler, his mind racing. His mentor, his friend, was standing there, caught in the middle of something that neither of them had ever anticipated. The man in the suit was a shadow over their entire lives now, and Jaden could feel his grip tightening with every passing second. Get out of here, Malik, Jaden said, his voice harsh now, almost like a command. He didn't want Malik anywhere near this. Get out of this. You don't belong here. You're not part of this world. Malik shook his head, his fists clenching at his sides. I'm not going anywhere without you. I'm not leaving you to rot in this mess. I don't care what they say or what you think you've become. The words were like a punch to Jaden's gut. His baby brother, brave, naive, loyal, was about to walk right into the fire. And Jaden couldn't stop him. The man in the suit took a few steps forward, finally breaking the tension. This is amusing, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. Two brothers, bound by blood, standing at a crossroads. But let me remind you both, this isn't some fantasy. You don't get to walk away when you've made a deal with the devil. Not anymore. Jaden took a deep breath, trying to ignore the man's words, focusing instead on Malik. His brother. His responsibility. The one person who had never wavered in his belief in Jaden. The one person who hadn't given up on him. Malik, please, Jaden said, stepping toward him, his voice softer now. This is a mess. And it's my mess, not yours. You need to leave. Just go. But Malik didn't move. He stayed rooted to the spot, his face resolute. I'm not going anywhere, Jaden. We're in this together. Jaden's mind raced, each thought crashing into the next. He had promised Malik they would make it out, but how could he promise him that now? How could he tell Malik that everything was going to be okay when his whole life had just come crashing down? Jaden, Malik said, his voice quieter now but still full of determination, whatever this is, we'll get through it. Together. You don't have to go through this alone. Jaden shook his head. He could feel the tears building in his eyes, threatening to break through, but he refused to let them fall. Not in front of Malik. Not in front of anyone. You don't understand, Jaden muttered, his voice trembling. This isn't just about us anymore. It's bigger than that. I've already made my choice. The man in the suit took another step forward, his cold eyes gleaming. Good, he said, because we're not in the business of second chances. So here's the deal, either you follow through with your commitment and take Tyler out, or I'll take Malik with me. And I promise you, it won't be pretty. Jaden's stomach dropped. He had no idea how far this man would go. How far any of them would go to ensure their power and control. The realization hit him like a freight train, this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about power. Control. And if he didn't make the right choice now, everything would be lost. You wouldn't, Jaden breathed, looking between the man in the suit and Malik, who was now standing beside him, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The man's lips curled into a smirk. Try me. Tyler stepped forward, suddenly, with the force of someone who had been on the edge of breaking for a while now. Enough, he snapped, his voice commanding. Jaden, you don't have to listen to him. You don't have to make this choice. Jaden's mind spun. There was no winning. Not now. Not after everything that had been said and done. The weight of the decision hung heavy on his shoulders. I didn't ask for any of this, Jaden muttered, his eyes locked on the man in the suit. But if I don't make this choice, you'll destroy everything. You'll destroy him. The man in the suit's eyes hardened. Exactly. Jaden's breath caught in his throat. He looked at Malik, standing beside him, and the pain was unbearable. He could already see the disappointment in his brother's eyes. The trust that was once so easy to take for granted was now something that would have to be earned again, if it was possible at all. With a heart full of regret, Jaden's fingers tightened around the gun. This is the only way, Malik, Jaden said, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry. Malik shook his head in disbelief. You're making the wrong choice, Jaden. There's always another way. But Jaden knew the truth. There wasn't. Not anymore. The warehouse was filled with tension. Every breath Jaden took felt heavier, as though the air itself was suffocating him. His fingers were trembling around the cold steel of the gun, and his mind raced with thoughts of what was coming. His heart was torn in two, each side screaming in agony, battling for a future he wasn't sure he could have anymore. Malik stood beside him, eyes filled with disbelief, his voice still echoing in Jaden's mind, you're making the wrong choice, Jaden. His words were a plea, but they felt like a warning, too. Malik didn't understand the gravity of the situation. He didn't know what Jaden had been forced into, what choices had been made for him. Jaden had always protected Malik, kept him away from this world, but now that Malik was here, standing beside him, everything had changed. You're making a mistake, Malik repeated, his voice a low murmur. There's another way out, Jaden. I know there is. Jaden's eyes were glued to the man in the suit, whose cold, calculating eyes never wavered. The man's associates flanked him, their faces covered in masks that obscured any trace of humanity. The sense of danger that permeated the room was palpable. Jaden could feel it like a pressure against his chest, a constant reminder that any wrong move would cost him everything. I don't know if there is, Jaden said quietly, his voice tight. I don't know if there's any other way anymore, Malik. Malik's eyes softened, but the anger was still there, anger at what Jaden had become, anger at the situation they were in. You can't just give up like this, Jaden. You've always been stronger than this. The truth was, Jaden didn't feel strong anymore. He hadn't felt strong for a long time. The choices he had made, the things he had done to survive in this brutal world, they had broken something in him. But he couldn't admit that. He couldn't tell Malik that the world had worn him down, had turned him into someone who would willingly pull the trigger just to save himself. To save them. To save Malik. The man in the suit took a step forward, a cold smirk creeping across his face. Enough talk. The moment for decision is here. Jaden's hands were shaking so badly that he could feel the weight of the gun becoming unbearable. He could feel his stomach twisting, the bile rising in his throat. He had promised Malik, promised himself, that he wouldn't let them break him. But the fear, the uncertainty of everything, made it harder to hold on to that promise. You don't have to do this, Jaden, Tyler said, stepping forward, his voice shaking with a mix of resolve and desperation. You still have time. There's still time to make the right choice. Jaden glanced at Tyler. His mentor. His friend. Someone who had been through so much with him, someone who had always believed there was more to life than the streets, than the games of power and control. But Tyler didn't know what Jaden had seen. He didn't know the lengths Jaden had gone to in order to survive. There was no easy way out anymore, and Jaden couldn't pretend there was. Tyler, Jaden said, his voice raw. I don't think I can do it anymore. I don't think I can keep pretending there's a way out. His eyes flickered to Malik. I tried, Malik. I really did. But I can't keep running from this. I'm sorry. Malik's jaw clenched, but he didn't move. You're not sorry, Jaden. You're just scared. And that was the truth of it. Fear was all Jaden had known for so long. Fear of losing Malik. Fear of losing himself. Fear of never being good enough. Fear of letting everyone down. The man in the suit smiled again, sensing the hesitation in Jaden's posture. This is the end of the road, Jaden. You're either with me, or you're against me. And if you're against me, I won't hesitate to make sure it's the end for all of you. Jaden's grip tightened on the gun. He felt the cold metal bite into his palms, the pressure of it bearing down on him like a weight he could no longer escape. The moment had come. The point of no return. He couldn't go back. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't even want to. For a moment, he closed his eyes, taking a slow, deep breath. He thought of his mother's voice, of the promises she'd made him, of the life he had once dreamed of, a life without fear, without violence. But that was all gone now. This was the life he had made for himself. And for better or worse, it was his to bear. I'll do it, Jaden said, his voice barely above a whisper, but steady. He opened his eyes and looked directly at the man in the suit. I'll take him out. Tyler's face fell, his expression one of disbelief. Jaden, no. This isn't you. But the man in the suit stepped forward, snapping his fingers, and one of his associates moved toward Tyler, grabbing him by the arm and forcing him to his knees. Don't waste any more time, the man in the suit said. This is your last chance. Take the shot. Jaden's eyes flickered from Tyler to Malik. The pain in his chest was unbearable. He could hear Malik's voice in his head, there's always another way. The gun in Jaden's hand was heavy, so heavy. But the decision was made. He couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. This was survival. This was the only way he knew how to protect those he loved. He lifted the gun. But the sound of a door slamming open startled him. Enough. It was a voice Jaden hadn't heard in years, but one that instantly brought a sense of hope flooding back into his chest. His heart skipped a beat, and for a split second, the room seemed to freeze. Standing in the doorway was someone Jaden thought he'd never see again, his father. Drop the gun, Jaden, his father commanded, his voice low and firm. You don't have to do this. Not anymore. The man in the suit's face twisted in anger. Who the hell are you two? I'm the one who raised him, Jaden's father interrupted, stepping into the room with a steady, commanding presence. And I'm the one who'll make sure he doesn't become what you want him to be. Jaden's mind was reeling. His father had left when he was just a kid, and they hadn't spoken in years. But now, here he was, standing in front of him, as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. Jaden's heart raced, confusion and relief mixing in a chaotic swirl. Could it be? Could his father truly save him from this? You can't stop this, the man in the suit spat, but Jaden's father was undeterred. I'm not trying to stop you, his father said, but I'm not going to let you control my son. In that moment, something inside Jaden snapped. The weight of the world seemed to lift just a little. His father was here. And maybe, just maybe, they could finally break free from this nightmare. The air in the warehouse was thick with tension, a heavy silence hanging over everyone. Jaden's father stood firm in the doorway, his presence like a shield, standing between Jaden and the man in the suit who had been orchestrating their nightmare. The gun in Jaden's hand felt impossibly heavy now. His fingers trembled, not from fear of the man in front of him, but from the weight of the choice he had to make. He could almost hear Malik's voice echoing in his mind, "There's always another way." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Jaden believed it. "Drop the gun, Jaden," his father's voice cut through the tension, steady and unwavering. "You don't have to do this. Not anymore." Jaden's eyes flickered from the gun in his hand to the man in the suit, who stood still, his cold eyes glinting with malice. His father's voice had brought something inside him back to life, something he had almost forgotten in the chaos of the past few weeks. Hope. It was the same feeling that had driven him and Malik through everything. The idea that they could still escape this world, that they could still have a future. But the man in the suit didn't want to give up. He stepped forward, his smile tight, his hands clasped behind his back like he was waiting for Jaden to make his final mistake. "You think you can walk away from this?" the man sneered. "You think you can just turn your back on all the promises you made? All the deals you've made?" Jaden's father didn't flinch, his voice still strong as steel. "My son owes you nothing. This ends now." For the first time in the entire ordeal, the man in the suit faltered. His eyes darted between Jaden's father and the gun in Jaden's hand, realization slowly sinking in. He had thought he had Jaden cornered. But Jaden's father, this was not the man he had expected. Jaden's heart pounded in his chest. His father's words reverberated in his mind. "You don't have to do this. Not anymore." Jaden's fingers loosened slightly around the gun. The desire to pull the trigger, to end it all right now, began to fade as a new thought crept into his mind: there's another way. Malik stepped closer to Jaden, his face a mix of confusion and hope. "Jaden, please," he whispered. "This isn't you. This isn't who you are." His eyes were wide, searching Jaden's face for the brother he had once known, the one who had promised they would get through everything together. "There's still a chance for us." For a split second, Jaden looked down at his younger brother, the one person who still believed in him, even when Jaden had lost himself. His heart wrenched as he thought of all the moments he had promised Malik that everything would be okay. But he hadn't kept that promise. Not yet. But now, he might be able to. Jaden's gaze turned back to the man in the suit, who stood there, no longer as sure of himself as he had been moments before. The power had shifted. Jaden felt it in his chest, a surge of strength he hadn't realized he still possessed. It wasn't the power of the gun, or the threats, or the manipulation. It was the power of family. The power of loyalty. The power of a choice that Jaden could still make. "Get out," Jaden said, his voice calm but firm. "You're not welcome here anymore." The man in the suit took a step back, a sneer forming on his lips. He hadn't expected Jaden to turn on him, not like this. He had expected him to fall in line. To be his puppet. But Jaden wasn't that anymore. He had found something within himself he thought was lost forever. You think you can just walk away, the man growled, his voice full of venom. You'll regret this. All of you will. But Jaden didn't flinch. He looked at Malik, his younger brother, the boy who had once been afraid of everything, but who had grown stronger in his presence, who had kept pushing forward even when Jaden felt lost. Malik had believed in him when no one else did. And now it was time for Jaden to believe in himself. You're wrong, Jaden said, his voice resolute. This is where it ends for you. With a swift motion, Jaden tossed the gun aside, sending it clattering to the ground. He stepped forward, his eyes locked on the man in the suit. I'm done, Jaden said. We're done. You don't control me. Not anymore. The man in the suit's eyes widened in fury. His hands clenched at his sides, and for a moment, it seemed like he might lunge at Jaden. But Jaden didn't move. His father stood behind him, his presence a shield that Jaden could now rely on. You may have had control over me once, Jaden continued, his voice steady, but not anymore. And I'm not going to let you hurt anyone else. There was a moment of stillness, and then the man in the suit gave a sharp, bitter laugh. You think this is over? You think you've won? He spat. You can't just walk away from this world. It doesn't let go so easily. You're right, Jaden said, his voice unwavering. But I've already made my choice. I choose my family. I choose my brother. I choose a life without fear. The man's eyes narrowed in anger. You'll regret this. This isn't the last you've heard of me. With one last look, the man in the suit turned and stalked out of the warehouse, his footsteps echoing in the silence. His associates followed, leaving Jaden, Malik, Tyler, and his father standing in the aftermath. Jaden let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, his shoulders sagging as the weight of the moment settled in. It was over. For now. He had made it. He had made the right choice. But that didn't mean the fight was over. They still had a long way to go before they could truly say they were free. But for the first time in a long time, Jaden felt a glimmer of hope. It was faint, but it was there. Jaden. Malik's voice was soft, full of emotion as he took a step forward, his hand reaching for Jaden's. You did it. You got us out. You saved us. Jaden turned to his brother, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. We did it, Malik. Together. I'll never let go of that promise again. Tyler, who had been watching silently, stepped up beside them, his eyes full of pride. You both have a long road ahead of you, he said. But don't ever forget this moment. You made the choice, Jaden. And that's the hardest part. Jaden nodded, his mind already working on what came next. There was still so much to fix, so much to make right. But he had his family with him. He had Malik. And maybe, just maybe, they could finally start the life they deserved. As they walked out of the warehouse together, the sun was beginning to rise on a new day, a day that was uncertain, but full of possibility. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?